Well, what about the future for Aotearoa? There will be different views on this, but I'm a pathologically optimistic person, self-confessed. I think we should be very hopeful about our future. Are we living in a challenging, complex world? Yes. Has it always been so? Probably. How did we do during a 1 in 100 year existential threat, a global pandemic? Pretty jolly well. We are the only country, unique in the world, that after 3 years of a global pandemic that's killed over 20 million people, we're the only country that has what's called negative excess mortality. In other words, less people died during the 3 years of the pandemic in New Zealand than you would have expected based on trends. We're the only country in the world that has got that. And if you look at and compare that with, just to put some numbers around that, I think we've just passed 4,000 deaths in New Zealand from COVID. If we had the same death rate as the UK, that figure would be around 13 or 14,000. If it was the same death rate as the USA, it would be over 20,000. We are the only country, unique in the world, that after 3 years of a global pandemic that's killed over 20 million people, we're the only country that has what's called negative excess mortality.
Excess deaths around the world remain high. They were throughout 2022. And this is continuing into 2023. Let's just look at some of the data first of all. So this is from our world in data. This is basically 2022 into 2023. And we can see that that's zero. So that's where we would expect the lines to be. But we've noticed for these countries, New Zealand, South Korea, Hong Kong, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Netherlands, United States, France and Denmark, they are all well above the line. Deaths in all these countries throughout 2022 and 2023, for the most part, and the average is certainly way above. Yes, you got the odd one dipping below for a period of time, but the average is well above.
We are the only country, unique in the world.
New Zealand, South Korea, Hong Kong, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Netherlands, United States, France and Denmark, deaths in all these countries throughout 2022 and 2023, for the most part, and the average is certainly way above.
That after 3 years of a global pandemic that's killed over 20 million people, we're the only country that has what's called negative excess mortality.
New Zealand, again, this is plus 5%, so New Zealand has been well above average since January 2022 all the way through that we have figures for, up to May the 21st, 2023. It remains high. Why is there no international outcry about this? Am I missing something here? I just don't understand this.
More people died from COVID, probably preventable deaths from COVID in the USA, than Americans died in every war in the 20th century combined. Back in 1918, the pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic, took a huge toll on New Zealanders, particularly on our Māori communities. Now, Māori and Pacific people had a higher death rate in this pandemic than non-Māori, non-Pacific, but it was much, much lower than it would have been if we hadn't taken the approach we did, an elimination strategy. And a strategy, an approach that required everybody to do their bit. And I'm grateful that when the times were really tough, and they were at times, I would just remind myself that I wasn't in this role in the US of A, and I would feel sorry for Anthony Fauci and count my blessings that not only was I in a country with an amazing public service, with politicians who turn up every day to do the right thing, regardless of their colour, of their party, but with people who care about each other. And sometimes I get asked the question when I'm overseas. I'm back doing some work for the WHO periodically.
You know, it's a pity we don't have an organisation that's responsible for global health, because if they did, they'd be absolutely bouncing up and down about this and saying, what is killing our people? Let's get to the bottom of this.
And sometimes I get asked the question when I'm overseas. I'm back doing some work for the WHO periodically, and people are in awe of what New Zealand achieved. And they say, is it because New Zealanders just must be more compliant? No, not in my humble experience, actually. But the point is that people understood what it was about and they looked out for each other. And I hope that we can apply ourselves to some of those other big issues that we really should and wish, I think, and aspire to do better on: child poverty, housing and homelessness, environmental sustainability, and our contribution, because we can be a beacon to mitigating or preventing further climate change and mitigating its impacts. So, as Forrest Gump once said, that's about all I want to say about that. And we're now open for questions, and I understand there are some roving mics. Kia ora.